Hello, people of YouTube. 2014. What a year for movies. Not only were there loads of big movies that were actually good, but tons of great smaller movies that I was able to see on the big screen. But as we all know, for every good film that comes out, there are at least 5 shitty ones that get released. To balance things out, I guess? Wouldn't want things going too well, now would we? Now, for the most part, I try to avoid movies that look like they're going to be crap, so there's probably gonna be some god-awful piece of shit that came out this year that I didn't see and you did, but there's nothing I can really do about that, guys. Out of all the movies I saw this year, I felt these were the poorest. So let's not waste any more time. These are my top 10 worst movies of 2014. So, kicking off our list at number 10, Noah. Now, when I saw the trailer for this movie, I thought, yeah, that'll probably be good. Russell Crowe is the lead, a story that lends itself to a lot of grand spectacle, and Darren Aronofsky directing. He's not exactly one of my favorites, but I really liked The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke. Black Swan I enjoyed for what it was, though I never had a desire to watch it again. But he's a very creative director, and I thought if he wants to do Noah, then he must at least have a vision for it. Then the reviews came out. I heard that there were these rock creatures or something that helped Noah build the Ark, and that the movie all in all took a very weird and more fantastical approach with the story. Frankly, I thought that was more appropriate given what the story is, so I was still at least interested in the movie. Well, it was on TV recently, so I got a chance to watch it. And oh my god, there are so many things wrong with this movie. The fantasy elements are so poorly handled. I deliberately didn't show you what the rock creatures looked like to let you imagine them in your head first. I bet they looked pretty cool. And this is the design that they went with. I'm sorry, but that thing is just ugly.
But not in an entertaining way.
It looks like one of those stone giants from The Hobbit took a poorly rendered dump. I mean, just look at it walking around. It looks totally weightless for starters, and the movement isn't fluid at all. And that's pretty much the case with all the CGI in the film. It's certainly not all as clunky as this, but none of it ever felt like it was actually there. The plot is ludicrous, and I mean really out there. Not the flood or the animals on the boat, I mean that's the story of Noah, whatever. But all this stuff about Russell Crowe needing to kill his daughter's child because it's not what God would want, give me a break. The movie has absolutely no tension, which is odd considering the world is coming to an end, but nobody really seems to be acting as though it is. The performances are surprisingly lackluster. The score is not bad, and there were some cool time-lapse sequences, but it's competently shot at best, and despite the film trying so hard to be new and inventive, it just ends up being sort of alienating and dry. It's just an odd movie more than anything, and not in a good way. I hope you get him next time, Darren. And next on the list at number 9, Transcendence. Now this one was a big disappointment. The concept of someone's consciousness being uploaded to a computer isn't exactly groundbreakingly original, but this movie looked interesting. It had a good cast, a promising first-time director. The film had definite potential. But unfortunately, we got an overly convoluted plot, the actors had zero chemistry with each other, and despite the film starting out with a well-grounded universe, towards the end it just became absurd.
There comes a point where you can't upload somebody to a computer. You throw your hand. Well, I mean, science fiction. You can do anything. But when they start analysing raindrops and there's evil in raindrops and everything crumbles and then it all comes back to you go, no, this is just utterly stupid.
I did a review for this movie, so if you want to hear more about why it's bad, then you can go check that out. As for now, I think it's a boring and monotonous misfire. Wally Pfister is one of the best DPs working today, and I will go see the next movie he directs. But this one, I'd like to forget as soon as possible. Good thing the film doesn't make it hard to. And at number 8, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Okay, so you guys know I don't like Marvel, I've never had an interest in Spider-Man, the first of these reboots was less exciting than watching paint dry, and what changes were made to improve the franchise since the last film? Changing Spider-Man's eye patches? Dynamite. Okay, chances were I wasn't gonna like this movie, but I can still appreciate something for what it is as long as it's doing its job for the people who do like it. But nope, this film punishes those who actually care about this character and rewards those who don't with a wonderful comedy. Okay, you've heard it all before at this point. There's too many villains, all of their motivations are completely forced, the script is just a mess, which is weird given it was written by the guys who brought us these classics. Mark Webb does a good job with the Gwen and Peter scenes, I'll give him that. A much better job than Sam Raimi did, but he is out of his depth with this universe to say the least. This is a pretty stupid movie, though I must say I found it quite entertaining. Just for all the wrong reasons. So next up at number 7, Nymphomaniac Volumes 1 and 2. Okay, so why did I watch this movie? Let alone both fucking volumes of it? Well, it was mainly through morbid curiosity. They're both on Netflix and I'd heard so much about them, so I decided to check out the beginning of Volume 1 with the intention of just seeing what the movie is like, and I must say I got quite sucked into it. There's some great cinematography, great sound design, and the performances are great. Most of them, anyway. Written and directed by Lars von Trier, the film's main objective is to deal with ideas, to grapple with provocative questions, and while some scenes do touch upon some very deep and truthful concepts, the majority of these two films are filled with pure bullshit. The central character, as you may have guessed, is a nymphomaniac. She's telling her life story to this guy, and after she's finished telling some horrific story about her past, we'll cut back and instantly this guy is trying to make metaphorical connections between her behavior and fishing. Okay, I don't have a problem with symbolism or metaphors, but the connections that are being made here are so flimsy and reaching that really, you feel the presence of Lars von Trier trying to get his opinions across, and not those of the characters. And that's not even mentioning how goddamn repetitive this becomes.
Interrupt here. What you were doing when you walked down that corridor, you were reading the river. Most of the large fish stay sheltered from the current to save energy.
But then suddenly it stopped.
That's a very clear parallel to fishing in a stream.
But then it started again.
Yeah, and I think I know how. Because fly fishing can be done in several phases.
Shia LaBeouf is also in the movie, and my god, that accent.
I just can't work it out, you imagine that? No, it bloody isn't. It ruins the whole idea of having a moped. You should probably take off your knickers, yeah? I bet you didn't think I'd make something of myself, right? And now here I sit. Director's chair of M&J Morris Limited. I'm gonna set, Joe. It doesn't mean we won't continue with our sex life, which is very important to me. When you buy a tiger, right? You also have to feed it. Satisfy it.
I will say that Charlotte Gainsbourg, as always, is very, very good. In fact, there were a lot of lines where I probably would have started sniggering had they been delivered by a less competent actress.
I'm telling you about the worst thing that's happened to me. That I, at that point, within seconds, lost all sexual sensation. My cunt simply went numb.
Volume 2 wasn't quite as bad as Volume 1, but that's the thing. This story doesn't need volumes, Lars. This is one movie, and it might have even been a good one had you cut out all of your self-indulgent bullshit. And that's my biggest issue with it at the end of the day.
Explain yourself. What didn't you like about it?
It insists upon itself, Lois.
What?
It insists upon itself.
What does that even mean?
I'd say check it out to see exactly what you make of it, but as for me, aside from a few good moments, the film thinks it's being groundbreaking when it's not. It's annoyingly shot, it's annoyingly edited, it's annoyingly written, and I can safely say that it wasted more of my time than anything else on this list. Next on the list at number 6, A Million Ways to Die in the West. This was another big disappointment. I'm a huge fan of Family Guy, Ted was a lot of laughs, as well as being a solid movie in its own right, and the trailer for this looked really funny. At least, I thought so.
It's actually really interesting how they do it. It's this one company out in Boston that... That went south so fast!
But the movie is anything but. As we all know, Seth MacFarlane likes to make a lot of pop culture references. Now whether you find them funny or not is neither here nor there. But we can all agree that as a comedy writer, it's where he gets most of his material. Well, setting the movie in the Old West sort of makes it impossible to access those jokes, Seth! So instead, he's forced to write jokes about the time period. Not an impossible job, but I don't think he was quite up to the task. Pretty much every line in this movie falls flat.
No, this is an end of the workday outfit you have on. Yeah, no, I'm very glad I remembered the 6 items I somehow require to hold up my pants.
Oh, yeah.
I like your bustle, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I really love that the most alluring fashion statement a woman can make today is to simulate a fat ass.
That is a simulation of a fat ass
Thank
right
you.
there. If I was a black guy, this is the meanest trick you could play on me.
The acting from just about everybody is pretty insincere, with the exception of maybe Neil Patrick Harris, a man who can do no wrong, it seems. Well, except saying yes to this script. Something else I don't think Seth MacFarlane was quite up to, in addition to writing and directing this movie, deciding to star in it. Don't get me wrong, he's a great performer, but when the script calls for him to do some actual acting, you never really buy it. It's actually kind of painful at times. I admire the film for its ambition, I guess, but the jokes are unfunny and or gross, so much talent ends up going to waste, and honestly, I think Seth MacFarlane got a little ahead of himself and his own abilities. I'd give this one a miss, guys. Just stick on some Family Guy instead. And at number 5, Dumb and Dumber 2. Yeah, did the intentional misspelling of the title make you laugh? Good, because the movie probably won't. Okay, I know humor is a very subjective thing, and some of you may have seen this film and gotten something out of it, but not me. I'm a huge fan of the two lead actors, and I'm quite a fan of the original. It's not a masterpiece, but it knows what it is. Most of the jokes are pretty creative, and most importantly, it was back when the Farrelly brothers knew how to make good movies. The plot pretty much follows the same formula as the first movie. For the first 5 minutes, it is enjoyable to see Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels reprising their roles, and they do a good job at feeling like those characters again, unlike another film on this list. But for me, all, and I mean all, of the jokes fell flat. Something just wasn't coming together on this movie. I honestly do think that the Farrelly brothers have lost touch with their audience a little bit. I mean, seriously, when was the last time they released a funny movie? Another thing, and I know that this is really nitpicky, but this stuff just stands out like a sore thumb to me. When the Farrelly brothers were shooting on film, their movies looked better. They've adopted digital cameras, which is fine. In fact, there's an argument to be made that comedy is the genre that benefits the most from the digital revolution. Take upon take for no cost surely must be a godsend for comedians that like to improvise. But the look of the film is just so ugly. There's no effort to give the movie any kind of aesthetic. It's just point and click, which granted was probably the way they always made movies, but film masks the things we as audiences don't like to notice. But in digital, you can see the makeup the actors are wearing. Lloyd's hair looks a lot more like a wig on Jim Carrey's head in this movie. I don't know, everything just looks kind of cheaper. I sort of felt the presence of the film set and it kind of took me out of it. But I do realize most people don't usually notice or care about these things. All in all, the script needs about 3 more rewrites. I think the film is visually unappealing, and though Carrey and Daniels really do feel like these characters again, it just left me thinking, hey, wasn't Dumb and Dumber a funny movie? And next up at number 4, The Inbetweeners 2. Man, they couldn't have gotten more things wrong on this movie. And that's what bothers me the most about it. The Inbetweeners is such a simple concept to get right. It takes talent and genius to come up with it, but executing it is not only straightforward, but it doesn't even take much of a budget. You just need to get these 4 guys up on screen, have them standing around, and give them a funny script to work with. That's all you need. But that's not what audiences want to see. We don't want to see these characters being developed or communicating with each other. We want to see them perform hilarious slapstick comedy. If Neil suddenly punching a fish to death in the show was funny, then surely him inadvertently killing a dolphin over the course of 7 minutes must be even funnier. You know how Jay was gross in the show? Well, how about an entire monologue about what a pig he is? You know how Will has glasses? Well, how about a Harry Potter themed opening credits sequence? What the fuck? I mean, that's the essence of comedy, right? Just do all the jokes we've seen before, but bigger. Long gone are the days of writing smart dialogue to distract the audience from the fact you had no money. Now you've got loads of cash to throw at the movie. Forget about the script. Let's have Will pass out in a zip wire. No, let's have shit fly right into his face. No, the 4 boys, they drive into the middle of the outback, get stuck there, and almost die. I mean, it is the Inbetweeners after all. Okay, this one made me mad. Though the 4 central actors maintain their professionalism in that they never stop trying to make the movie funny, but their efforts are in vain, as nothing can save this script. They feel like cartoon cutouts of the characters from the show. All of the supporting characters are not only obnoxious, but pointless. There's no flow to what little story there is, and the simple little British comedy about 4 lads growing up in England feels very distant at this point. The movie doesn't really have an ending and nothing is really concluded. It sucked, and frankly I don't want to talk about it anymore. I would like to make it clear that this movie hasn't ruined the show for me or anything. I still love these characters, but like I said in my review, more money does not always mean more funny. And at number 3, The Legend of Hercules. Alright, firstly, let me explain. Sometimes I do like to watch films that I know are gonna be bad. Despite what I said at the beginning of this video, there are certain movies that just look so bad that I just get intrigued. The trailer isn't enough. I'm too fascinated by how bad this looks that I need to see more. Also, Owen had already reviewed the other Hercules movie that came out this year, so this way, between the two of us, we would have covered all the Hercules-related shit of 2014. I do realize that most of you probably haven't haven't seen this movie or even heard of it, I mean really, nobody saw this film. And yep, it pretty much consists of all the cliches you'd expect a movie like this to have. Well, this is an action movie, so let's start with the effects. They're awful! You either get one of two things in this movie: obvious set or terrible green screen. And whenever they need to break out some 3D animation, it feels a lot like a punchline. Wait, why are you all running? He's still chained up. You still have the upper hand. Why doesn't this guy just walk over and stab him? Whoosh! Katoosh! Katwhack! Shkapoo! And that's another cliche that the movie seems to wear as a badge of honor. Hitting the slow-mo button anytime the movie does something that it thinks is cool. Slow motion should be used as a dramatic tool. People just aren't wowed by it anymore in that way. And it couldn't be more obvious who you're trying to rip off. All of the acting in the film is so over the top. Everybody hams it up. Well, except for Hercules himself, played by Kellen Lutz. Apparently he was some dude in Twilight. I mean, right there. Not only was he in Twilight, but he was forgettable in it. I mean, the guy just can't act. Forget about conveying emotion of any kind. A lot of the time, I'm just sitting there wondering if he even understood the lines he was saying. Just listen to this guy.
There is, in my mind's eye. I need you strong. Are you strong? Who are you, soldier? Hercules.
Our hero, ladies and gentlemen.
From a little boy, I've been so excited to play Hercules. I would do it in my backyard on the farm. I became an actor, and now these dreams become a reality, and I can bring them to the big screen and have this last forever.
As for the visuals and the overall aesthetic, well, look at it. It's hideous. Everything is cheap, all of the costumes look like they've just been dry cleaned, and as I mentioned, any sort of effects never come close to looking real. But I mean, they had no money, guys. You can't be too harsh on them. They tried to make an ambitious movie for next to nothing. $70 million. What the hell? They had money. Where did it go? Certainly not the actors, or the script, or the sets, or the effects. All you did was waste $70 million to make some crappy 300 knockoff. Oh, and guess what? Funny thing about 300. It was made with even less money! Okay, everything about this movie is pretty shameless. It's just a rushed, boring, lazy, ugly, melodramatic, stupid mess with absolutely nothing new or creative to bring to the table. Need I say more? And at number 2, Transformers: Age of Extinction. Okay, I guess the time has finally come for me to talk about Transformers. What are we on now, 4? Owen and I went to go see this movie, and it was with the intention of doing a review on it, but I just kept pushing it back and pushing it back. I was just so exhausted by this film, to the point where I'm just numb to it. But there's no way I can let it get a pass from this list. A lot of you may be surprised not to see it at number 1, but trust me, something worse is coming up next. So how was Transformers 4? Or just Transformers 1, but for the 4th time? Not good, guys. Not good. For all the same reasons as the previous movies, except with the added bonus of more of it. We get a new cast of characters this time round. Shia LaBeouf is long gone, and in his place is Marky Mark, a single father who lifts weights, flies alien space vehicles, punches like a pro boxer, shoots alien guns, and invents things.
Just a regular, everyday, normal motherfucker.
It was actually kind of funny. Owen and I got to the movie theater a little late, so by the time we were walking in, the film had just started. We didn't really know what we'd be getting as we walked in. We heard explosion sound effects, which was funny enough on its own, but this was literally the first shot we walked into. I mean, goddamn! I haven't even taken my seat yet! What the hell is happening? How far into the movie are we again? Wow. Alright guys, honestly, hasn't it all been said at this point? I mean, we're 4 movies in, and no matter how stupid they get, or how offensive they get, or how incomprehensible they get, they keep making money. And not just a little money, fuckloads of money. So I don't know, if you like seeing the same movie over and over again, then great, continue watching them. But they're not good movies. They're just not. If you enjoy them, then hey, more power to you. But enjoying something doesn't make it good. Are there things that I like that I know probably aren't very good? Hell yes. And vice versa. Do I enjoy the Avengers? Hell no. I think the characters are fluff, I find the dialogue a little grating, and the action is too clean for me to feel any real stakes. However, I can also recognize that if I were a fan of the source material, or these characters, then I would probably enjoy the hell out of the Avengers. In other words, most of my reasons for disliking it, though some hold more weight than others, fundamentally come down to taste. If I were a fan of the Transformers source material, then I would still hate these films. Michael Bay is just one of the worst directors to have ever made movies. Whenever he tries to deal with something that actually happened, it goes horribly wrong. He just can't help but sexualize every supporting female role this series has ever had. This one is no exception, only this time there's a chance it could be statutory rape. So the movie's gotta stop dead in its tracks to explain why exactly it's okay for this 20-year-old to be sleeping with this 17-year-old.
I just called the cops on you because this is illegal. She's a minor. We're protected by the Romeo and Juliet laws.
We dated for a little while. I was a sophomore and he was a senior. It's fine.
No, it's not fine. We've got a pre-existing juvenile foundational relationship. Statute 2705-3.
What? Texas statute? That a real law?
Yep.
Literally all you had to do was either write her 1 year older or write him a couple years younger.
You stole mouthwash? I like to be fresh when I'm making out with your daughter.
I will say that there was at least an attempt to make the Autobots look more distinctive, but again, it was done using the powers of stupid. So when he's in Autobot form, the solid metal car turns into a soft jacket that can flap in the wind? Why? To keep him warm? These are aliens, right? Why do they have a human fashion sense? Is this one smoking a cigar? And Bay didn't let this movie pass without his usual healthy dose of racism?
Loyalty's but a flower in the winds of fear and temptation. What the hell are you saying?
Wait, that's Ken Watanabe. That's not what he sounds like.
The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in our control, and not the other way around. You do not fear death, but sometimes you wish for it. Is this not so?
You just want to die for the guy. That's leadership. Or brainwashing or something.
No. That's Optimus Prime.
I guess he didn't sound Japanese enough. Hey, why is Marky Mark wearing glasses in this scene? He doesn't seem to be wearing them anywhere else. Could it be so that when Kelsey Grammer is finished trying to intimidate him, he can remove them dramatically on his first line of dialogue? Hey! Okay, to be honest, there are too many things wrong with this movie to even list off here. I hated it. It's a rehash of the first three, it insults your intelligence, the characters are annoying, the performances were boring, the script was laughable, the effects weren't actually that convincing, quite frankly, the editing is awful, it's way too long, everything looks like a commercial or music video, it's unbelievably offensive, and worst of all, there's gonna be a fifth one. Needless to say, this movie was horrible. Can't wait to see whatever Michael Bay is making next. And my number one pick for the worst movie of 2014 is The Canyons. Now, before I start, many of you might be thinking, hey, that movie came out in 2013. How can it be the worst movie of 2014 if it was released in 2013? That's stupid, you're stupid. It's true. This film was technically released in the US in 2013, but technically, I live in England, and technically in England, it was released on the 12th of May, 2014. And technically, this is my list, so there's nothing you can really do about it anyway. But that's right, folks. I actually sat down and watched The Canyons, and it was just terrible. Like, seriously awful, guys. I wouldn't say it's in the same class as The Room or Birdemic, but it comes pretty damn close. It just falls short of achieving classic bad movie status. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What even is The Canyons? Well, starring Lindsay Lohan and James Dean. No, not that James Dean. He's dead. This James Dean, the porn star. Written by Bret Easton Ellis, author of such books as American Psycho and Less Than Zero, and directed by Paul Schrader, who wrote the screenplays for such films as Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and and The Last Temptation of Christ. The film tells the story of a group of people who tell each other stories, and then a phone call happens, and then a murder happens, and then it ends. Okay, this film has one humongous flaw at its core, and it's ultimately what makes it a pretty boring film to sit through for the average viewer. I'm not going to explain what that flaw is just yet, though I will get to it, but I just want to clarify that what made this film entertaining for me to sit through were the numerous times I found myself knowing exactly what the writer, director, or actor was intending in any given moment, followed by my inevitable mental deconstruction of why it failed completely. The movie consists of dozens of little moments that, as an aspiring filmmaker, just speak to me. I've been the guy who thinks he's written an amazing and bold piece of dialogue when in fact it's a little nauseatingly corny. I've tried to do things with the camera that seem like cool ideas when really they're just distracting. I've directed actors and known the line could be delivered better, but instead chose to leave it and moved on. Dumb music choices, bad editing choices, the list does go on. It's trial and error. It's how we learn. But it only works if you respect how people respond to what you've made. If you make something intending a certain effect, and the audience don't respond the way you want them to, then throwing your arms up in the air and shouting, "They just don't get it. I'm right, they're wrong," is the creative equivalent to chaining an anchor to your leg, because you're not going to progress anywhere. Having said that, if you only care about what the audience thinks of your film, that could lead to a very dull and safe body of work. Sometimes it is important to stand by a decision you've made. Like most things in life, it's about finding a balance, and a good amount of self-awareness helps to keep things in perspective. The reason I'm making this point is because from the way this movie is both written and directed, it would appear director Paul Schrader and writer Bret Easton Ellis have indeed chained anchors to their legs. I'll come back to this point in a minute. For now, let's take a look at all the dumb stuff this film has to offer. So how's the acting in the film? What do you think, guys? I will say that Lindsay Lohan gives the best performance by far. She's the only one who ever came close to coming off as natural. That being said, she's still pretty bad. She has the most screen presence for sure, but there are still multiple moments where she is beyond disingenuous.
I don't know. I guess I'd like to keep some parts of my life private. Some aspects of my fucking life private. Ryan, stop. This isn't going anywhere. Okay, so there's no point in having this discussion. This has to end. We can't do this anymore.
Actually, I didn't. I was passed out.
And whose fault was that, Cynthia? Turns out that it's some girl that you dated on the east side, and not only did you put her in the hospital, but you invited a bunch of fucking guys over and then pulled a fucking train on her, Christian. Film the whole fucking thing, Christian.
That didn't
Christian,
fucking happen.
Oh, right, I'm sure.
Look.
As for James Dean, well, he's pretty goddamn awful. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, well, he's a porn star. Of course he was going to be terrible. But remember, this is far from the first time a porn star has done a regular movie. Not only has it been done before, but it's been done successfully. If James Dean was really good in this movie, then I would say so. I would have loved to be surprised like that. But the man just gives a really bad performance. Not because he's a porn star, but because he's a bad actor. Every little thing he does is so obviously not natural. Every line, every facial expression, every sinister stare.
There are a lot of people in this town who call themselves producers. You're just one.
Not all of it is his fault. There are many scenes where he's supposed to look suave and cool and he just looks like a jackass. He just looks so unnatural and robotic. And yeah, something tells me it was the director's choice to have him walk like that. But my biggest issue with his performance, and frankly it took me a couple of watches to pinpoint exactly what it was, it's something that we as audience members probably take for granted in our trained professional actors, but James Dean's vocal performance, in my opinion, makes him stand out like a sore thumb. It's something you don't really think about when you watch a movie, I guess. At least I didn't. But what an actor does vocally not only informs the audience about the character they're playing, but it has a huge impact on their screen presence. Just take a look at this scene from The Hobbit. Really pay attention to what Richard Armitage is doing vocally in this scene.
If we have read these signs, do you not think others will have read them too? Rumors have begun to spread. The dragon Smaug has not been seen for 60 years. Eyes look east to the mountain, assessing, wondering, weighing the risk. Perhaps the vast wealth of our people now lies unprotected. Do we sit back while others claim what is rightfully ours? Or do we seize this chance to take back Erebor?
Now that's kind of an unfair comparison. I don't think the Canyons had quite the same post-production facilities as The Hobbit did, but that just adds to the problem here. Without the help of a good sound mix due to limited resources, James Dean's untrained voice is totally exposed.
I don't know why she would say that. I have no fucking clue.
Me either. I don't know why she would say that either.
She's fucking on drugs and she's obsessed with me. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with her. I don't know.
What kind of drugs was she on? Roofies?
I have no idea. She's crazy. I don't fucking know. She probably is jealous that I'm with you instead of her. But it did not happen.
She's on drugs.
Yes. If it happened, I would tell you. I swear to God. But it did not.
But thanks.
It didn't, though. I swear.
You hired him as a favor to Gina, and that's why he's in the movie, isn't it?
Would you fuck him?
What did you just fucking ask me?
I said, would you fuck him?
What do you mean, have I processed it? I've processed it. I've accepted it. I just don't like it.
Now this character has been written as a commanding, suave, and intimidating person, and James Dean is palpably trying really hard to get those qualities across. But I've talked before about how feeling the effort an actor is putting into their performance can have a negative effect. Don't misunderstand me, actors should put in all the effort they can, but the final result should be watching a character fully brought to life, not watching the actor bust a gut attempting to make that happen. But to my surprise, James Dean did not give the worst performance in this film. No, that gold star goes to Abercrombie over here. I've got a lot to talk about with this movie, so to make my point for this guy, I'm just gonna show you one clip from the movie. He's been cheating on his girlfriend with Lindsay Lohan, and her boyfriend, James Dean, has decided to ruin his life as punishment. Abercrombie has a little meltdown when he tells his girlfriend about what's been going on, and, well, just watch.
And then it started again. And Christian found out. He's had me followed. He's fucked with my bank account. He's insane, and he knows about me and Tara. That's why the movie's not gonna happen, okay? Got it?
Jeez, talk about feeling the presence of an actor. Needless to say, all the performances in the movie feel incredibly staged. Well, except for Gus Van Sant's cameo. As for the work being done behind the camera, pretentious is probably the best word to sum it up. There are numerous times in the movie where it's style over substance. Unnecessary long takes that don't really add anything to the film's atmosphere. Insincere, snappy dialogue that's only purpose for being there is to be snappy. But this is my personal favorite moment of shallow filmmaking. Seriously, it's amazing how dumb this is. You see, Lindsay Lohan and James Dean's character like to swing with other couples. Lindsay's ready for a night of fun, so she comes out of the closet wearing this. She walks past the camera, drops the skirt, revealing her legs nicely for the camera, walks down the stairs, only to put on a dressing gown. So let me get this straight. She got all dolled up for the 6 feet walk from her closet to here, walked all the way down the stairs half naked, only to reclothe herself when she gets to the bottom. That is so dumb! Forget about style over substance. This is style over logic. As for the film's aesthetic, well, the movie was funded on Kickstarter, so I'm not going to be too harsh on them for shooting with a consumer camera. DSLRs are an amazing gift for amateur filmmakers like myself. That being said, there are plenty of times where the image looks cheap and it could have been avoided. Take a look at this scene, for example. Does it look odd to you when compared to the rest of the film? Me too. And I think it's because somebody literally forgot to adjust the color in post-production. All the colors in this scene are really flat and desaturated, and this is the only scene in the movie where this is the case. Just to make my point, I made some very minor corrections in my own software, and yep, that looks more like a movie to me. I'm not saying they should have made it look like this necessarily, but this took me less than 5 minutes, so my point is that if they wanted to make this scene look better, they very well could have. Earlier I mentioned that the film has one fundamental flaw that makes it rather boring. In terms of story or plot, the whole film is taking place either off camera or at a different time than the movie's setting. Like 90% of the movie is the characters talking about things that have happened in the past. We don't get to see what they're talking about. All the script cares about is getting all the appropriate pieces of information lined up in the right place so that when the one event of significance finally takes place at the end of the movie, it won't all feel completely pointless. Now, this is a form of storytelling found more often in plays. When you're restricted to one location, then it's the job of the script and the actors to convey the backstory and how it informs what's happening now. Now, a low-budget film is sorta like being restricted to a stage, so I understand why Ellis wrote the script this way, but you you need, and I repeat, need, great actors to make that work, and I'm sorry, but you just don't have that here. So the audience is left to watch lame actors discuss stuff we've never seen or care about. Not only is it really boring to watch, but when those end credits show up, you will be asking, what the hell was the point? Now, Bret Easton Ellis and Paul Schrader received plenty of criticism for this movie, but in all the interviews, articles, or tweets that they've put out in response to those criticisms, they just give off that familiar vibe of delusion we've seen so many times before.
I think that from a distance, I think those eagles and vulture look pretty realistic, and shocking and terrifying. You know, just like a $100 million picture, Hollywood style.
You think this looks like a $100 million picture?
Well, I think from a distance, you know, from a distance, okay?
From like back here, or out the room, or...
So in that sense, this movie does share a lot in common with the classic bad movies we've all come to enjoy. It's just more boring than they are. These guys clearly have a lot of talent, but I think they need to wake up and up their game. The film was repeatedly turned down at festivals. One even publicly came out and gave their reasons for doing it, saying that the film had an ugliness and deadness to it. Now, as unprofessional as it is for the festival to release that comment publicly, I honestly can't think of a better way to describe this movie. Schrader, of course, used the negative publicity as marketing fuel. The trailer ends with the words, "the film they didn't want you to see." No, Paul, it's the film we didn't want to see. Overall, I found this movie to be pretty damn hilarious, but it is terrible. None of the acting is genuine or believable, the plot is pretty much non-existent. The attempt at commentary for a dying industry falls totally flat as it goes completely unexplored and just serves as another shallow layer to this empty movie conceived by two talented people who seriously need to revisit the drawing board. Well, there you have it, guys. My top 10 worst movies of 2014. I realize this took a while to get to you, and I do apologize for that, but I do put a lot of work and time into these videos, as I really want you guys to enjoy them. But thank you for your patience, and the top 10 best is on its way. So, what were your worst movies of 2014, guys? I would really love to know in the comments, and as always, YouTube, take it easy until next time.
But he really liked it. He thought he was a great guy.
Oh, really? He did?
Yeah. Thought it was really cool.